I'm Vice Mayor Jim Waring. Today we took on the issues on the road to the Phoenix Dream Center, where we're going to speak with Pastor Brian Steele. He's the Executive Director of the Dream Center and someone who's doing great work in trying to impact human trafficking, a horrible crime that's happening right here under our noses in Phoenix. Pastor Steele, thanks so much for having us out today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to have you as well, and so thankful for the work you're heading up here in Phoenix. It's incredible.
Well, I appreciate that. Mayor Stanton appointed a task force. You're serving on the task force. I'm serving as co-chair. Very proud to do that. I think we're making a lot of great strides.
We are.
Both in Arizona and Phoenix, we've taken a pledge to try to eradicate human trafficking in 5 years. A lot of people don't know the volume of human trafficking. There's a lot of it going on here right under our noses in Phoenix. It's an appalling thought. And as I said, we're going to try to get the police force and county attorney and groups like yours out and active and trying to make sure that we get rid of as much of it as we possibly can. You want to talk a little bit about how you got started and what you've seen in your years doing this?
Sure. Well, 8 years ago, my wife and I were some of those people who didn't know that it was going on. We didn't know the extent of it, and it was just a new thought to us. But we'd been serving folks here at the Dream Center for a number of years already. It seemed natural for us to open our hearts, open up our doors to these young women of our community. But we really had no idea it was going on right here in Phoenix. We were part of the crowd that thought it's somewhere over there, overseas. Now, it looks a little different here in Phoenix and Arizona than it does overseas, but it's nonetheless trafficking. It's raw trafficking. We started out in 2008. We opened our hearts and our doors to these young women. We served 4 girls that first year and learned a lot about their needs and what they really needed. The next year we served 12, started a Dream Rooms project a couple of years later where we built out these incredible Dream Room spaces that you're going to see in just a moment for some of these young women. That lofted us up to 21. Currently today we have beds for 40 young women who are coming out of human trafficking. 14 different states all across the U.S. have sent young women to us. To date, we've served just over 300 young women in this program, and it's been incredible. I think the only thing that's even more incredible than that, though, is really our vision for the future. In the next 3 years, with the construction that you'll see going on here, next 3 years, we're adding 200 beds for trafficking survivors, and we know that this is a terrible thing in our city, but I think the bright star in this really has been people care. The Phoenix cares about its people. We see that time and time again. The faith community cares, the government cares, and we really can in 5 years make an impact, a huge impact in our state, and I believe we're going to be a beacon all across the nation. I really do.
Well, unfortunately, access to good transportation, which we have in Phoenix, good weather, big events, those are some of the things that really seem to attract this kind of activity, unfortunately. And of course, they're things that make us a great city or a great region apart from this activity, but unfortunately also makes us susceptible to this. Access to the border is another thing that tends to breed the kind of things that you see, these horrible crimes. I mean, a lot of times we're talking about children. And so what's the youngest person you've seen? How does that work? How do they find you?
Sure. In our work with law enforcement and our street outreaches, the youngest that I'm aware of was about 10 years old. The youngest we've served here at the Dream Center, because we have partnerships with other nonprofits who serve the really young women, the youngest we have currently is 14 years old. Our age range has typically been 14 to 26. Now, if you compare that with the known average age of entry into forced prostitution and trafficking in Phoenix, it's hovering around 12, 13 years old. So what that tells us is we're getting the young women to be able to help them and serve them after they've been in what we call the life for a couple of years. And so a couple of years may not seem like a long time to be abused and trauma, but considering that many of these young women are doing dozens and dozens and dozens of forced acts against their will every single night that they're on duty, and it's pretty rare that they're not on duty. It's 2 years can be a long time. So we're getting them after they've been in what we call the life for a few years. Our average age range really that we've seen for the sort of the middle ground has been 17, 18, 19-year-olds. That's been the bulk of the young women that come to us.
And they've probably been doing it, based on the statistics,
for
5, 6 years.
For a few years, yeah.
So the majority of the life that they remember, assuming you don't really remember till you're about 3 or 4, is this. This is all they really know. And
That's
we've
right.
had some survivors come and speak to us. At our last meeting, we had a survivor. Yeah. And she was telling stories that would be more horrible than any horror movie you could come up with. And then she said, and realized, I was 14 years old. Yeah. She's got kids of her own now, but it's just, she says, I think about the adults. I believe it was relatives and distant relatives who were doing this to her. She's like, what were they thinking? I was 14 years old. And it's just the way she said it was so heart-wrenching to hear. And those are the kind of stories that you see every day. We can't thank you enough for your work in this area.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do we go from here?
Alrighty, well, from here, I'd like to show you some of the rooms, kind of the model, explain how we help these. I think that's the good news in all of this, because it's very easy to get sort of caught up in how much of a travesty it is. It's nefariously wicked things going on to the young women of our community, and young men in many cases. But there is a bright light here in Phoenix. Phoenix cares. Phoenix is doing something about this, sending a message to the traffickers that this is not a place you can do that anymore. It is on our top list of things we're going after. We've got one of the most incredible vice units in the nation, I believe. We're fighting it at every level, but also from a social services community, we're the strongest that we've ever been. And so many different social service agencies have stepped up. We're one of them. I'm proud to show you what we're doing and how we do it.
Well, you're talking about the social service agencies, but certainly our Vice Squad is one of the biggest, as you suggested, in the country, certainly among big cities. We place more of an emphasis on this kind of activity. We're making about as many arrests as the federal government was making over a 3-year period. Yeah. We were making an equal number. So certainly it's been something that Phoenix has already been focused on. But as you know from your work on the subcommittee, we're trying to step up our efforts. The state also had a task force. They toughened the penalties in the legislative session last year. Yeah. So we're excited about using those penalties to arrest the pimps and, frankly, the Johns, sure, who it's, to my mind, it's really their interest in this kind of activity, this just disgusting activity, that really makes this, it's demand that's driving a lot of this. And so we're going to try to eradicate that on our end, but can't thank you enough for your efforts here. Next month, just so you know, we're going to speak with the police about how you can identify people that you may see. Incredible. If you see something strange, how to get in contact and so forth. Nice. But that's for next month. We're going to do our tour right now. So, Pastor, you want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing here?
Yeah, sure. So this part of our program is very important to us. It's the part of the program where the women first come into our program. So young women come into the Dream Center here from one of primarily three different avenues. One is LEOs, law enforcement agencies, send girls here, refer girls here, bring them here as part of their different work that they do.
Because they've been arrested or rescued, one of those two?
A little bit of both, Some of the young women who come in, another part of them come in through our outreaches. Every Friday and Saturday night, we're actually out in the streets with outreach teams, looking for the young women in the streets, giving them roses when they find them, telling them there's a place they can go, that if they need help getting out of this, we'll help them.
How many people would you contact in a night like that?
We give out 24 roses each night, each outreach night. So 24 roses means 24 young women.
So just by going out, you're finding people who are easy enough to identify that things are that bad. Yeah. Wow, and these are kids, teenagers?
They're young. When they look really young, we work very closely with law enforcement to give them all the information that we find out there. But we do see some very young. We also see the other end of the spectrum, the adults, young adults who are just trapped in this life and really have no vision for how they can get out of this. The third way that young women come into our program is by referrals from other places. So other homeless shelters, other places who serve the women may feel that this is a better place for that young woman. And we do the same. We refer out and do other places. The important thing is once they get here, it's a very critical time. Those first couple of weeks are very precious to us. We're learning who they are. They're learning who we are. Our counselors, our doctors, our psychologists are assessing them to make sure that they're safe, that this is a safe place for them. So during that first part, they come into one of these first Dream Rooms here, and they have their own room all to themselves. They have no commitments to the Dream Center. They don't need to go to class. They don't need to do anything other than just this. Take a deep breath. Learn to trust, learn what's going on, learn that food's going to come, food's going to be delivered to your room. It truly is just a time where we assess them. Once we get through the assessment period and we realize that this is a great program for them, this works for them, they transition on into the next rooms that I'm going to show you, which have 2 beds, and so then they get paired up with a roommate.
You talked about these rooms not having glass or fixtures where someone could potentially harm themselves or kill themselves. I mean, the situations are pretty bleak. When a lot of times, when I say kids, when these kids get here, I mean, what do you see?
Yeah, we see, it runs the gamut. A young lady who we're going to talk to in just a few minutes was out in Mesa, and she was a part of some gang activity going on out there. She came in stabbed, beat up, dropped off half dead. She was left for dead in an alleyway out there, and police were able to get her here to us, and we were able to get her the medical care she needed, get her the detox treatment that she needed, to help her to begin that process of rebuilding her life. She came in not only with all of that, but also pregnant and having to deal with
Which is
that.
pretty common, right? I mean,
Pretty
30%, and as our viewers, anyone who's a parent, I'm a parent, can attest, having a child under the best of circumstances is stressful. Having a circumstance where you're drug addicted, been stabbed, been abandoned behind a dumpster, if you can just imagine.
Yeah.
So these rooms are carefully constructed to make it so that they can't hurt themselves, and that they have a good, safe place to be.
Absolutely. A lot of thought went into these rooms. They're called dream rooms, and we worked with psychologists. We worked with some of the Valley's largest interior designers. They designed luxury homes. It was a great model that we had. They were in a competition. It was a friendly competition, but it was a competition to do each of the 10 rooms in a different way. But the rooms are absolutely beautiful, gorgeous rooms, but so much thought and therapy went into the rooms. Part of that was we wanted, in one sense, to build something that could be a vision for their life, a dream for their life, reinstilling that value of, you know what, I'm a person, I'm my own individual person. That value has been stripped from many of them. They've been
treated like property.
Yeah, like property, exactly like property. And so the dream rooms help us to reestablish that value in their lives. It gives them something to hope for, something to dream for. The dominant word we're showing to them is, you can have this too, and it doesn't have to come at a cost of your own body, your own integrity, your own things. You're worthy of this, you deserve this, and you can have this for your life. The other thing it does for us is the dream rooms, the opulence of the dream rooms greatly helps with our recidivism rates. This is an old Embassy Suites hotel, and it was a perfectly fine hotel in its own right, but it was still a hotel. And a lot of the POV, the points of victimization of many of the young women, happened in hotels. And so we found very early on we were trying to serve them in a service environment that was similar to the environment that they were victimized in. So with the dream rooms, we just went over the top. Each of these 470 square foot spaces has over $100,000 put into it. $100,000 of build out, $100,000 of design work, just to help them dream big for their life, but also help them say, this is a safe place for you to be.
97% of your funding, private sector funding. You know, you're spending most of your time out, I'm sure, fundraising, but you get a lot of donations, a lot of design groups. I see the names on the doors of the groups that have designed these rooms and donated a lot of their own time and resources to this. I just think that's fantastic that you're doing this without, for the most part, a lot of government intervention.
Yeah. We have too. About $2 million is our annual budget. The in-kind monies that we put in is in excess of $4 million a year for remodel and construction and solar projects. You've seen the wonderful solar project that we have.
That's businesses, in-kind is businesses donating their time and effort to make
Absolutely.
this possible.
Yeah, it's been incredible. The one summary I would have to say is Phoenix cares. Phoenix cares about its people, they care about these girls, and they're here to help. They're there to help, they really are. It's incredible testament to what the faith community, the business community, the other nonprofits and foundations, they're all stepping forward and saying, you know what, we want to help. We want to get behind agencies like the Dream Center who are making a difference in so many people's lives.
Now, these are the entry-level rooms, correct?
These are the entry-level rooms.
And so we're going to walk down and see, how this evolves for victims.
Yeah, so a young lady might be in here for 14 days, might be in here for 30 days, but at some point, the determined by the doctors is made, okay, she's ready. And what is she ready for? She's ready to begin the programming part. She's ready to start going to class, ready to start going to more in-depth therapy, ready to start meeting with sometimes attorneys, ready to start meeting with legal aid people to help sort of clear up some of her cases. The one-bedrooms, as you notice, did not have a kitchen in them. They're all safety feature built, so all the meals are brought to the young women. But in these middle rooms here, the young ladies spend between 9 to 18, sometimes 24 months in these rooms. This is the bulk of their programming. These rooms do have little kitchenettes where they can cook some of their meals. They can learn how to heat up leftovers, how to live on a budget and on an economy. During the bulk of our programming, the young women will experience one of nearly 10 different curriculum tracks. We found that every young woman, there are nearly 300 that have come through our program, every one of them needs an independent track. They have very independent needs from the other one. So we marry up with them a curriculum that works for her specific needs. We've had a 14-year-old, for example, that had been victimized since she was 10 years old, is when her trafficking started here in Phoenix. So her curriculum is geared more toward a very young person who has experienced healing at that level, at a young person's level. We also have young women who are in their early 20s who are more visual audio learning based, and so their curriculum is all DVD oriented and going to classes that have visual tools. But during this time, they'll be in here and go through their class. We'll help get rid of the old tickets or fines that they have, help them deal with any legal issues that they have, and if they're pregnant, help them go down that path as well. So once they go through the bulk of their programming, which I said can take anywhere from on the low end 9 months to on the high end sometimes 18 months, then they go into the final phase, which is graduation. It's a pretty exciting phase for us. My wife and I always say 2 of our favorite days for these girls are the day they first walk in, because we know from that moment anything is possible. They can dream big for their life. They're coming out of the most horrendous situation you can imagine. So that's our first favorite day. Our next favorite day is the day they leave. And so we say that kind of jokingly, but we know that we're not forever. We know that our program is not, we're not the rest of their life. They have ahead of them their entire life. And so our next favorite day is the day they actually graduate. When the young women
What's the average stay? I mean, you mentioned a little bit. It sounds like maybe a couple of years.
15 months is the average stay. Yeah. So some who come in who are what we call high functioning. They're really moving. Their healing is going well. Their therapy is going well. They can graduate our program in 9 months. Some who it's taken a little bit longer, a little bit more of that onion peel has to come off. They can take up to 24 months because we're primarily privately funded. We do have that liberty to really customize their programming and how they progress through to what works for them. Now the downside of that is we always have a waiting list. We always have more women who are needing to come into our program. 14 different states, as I mentioned before, that these young women have come from to our program. So keeping our young women longer doesn't always mean that that's the best thing for the women trying to get in the program. So it's a delicate balance. But at some point, the women come into this program that get to graduation point. At graduation, we don't just say, here's a certificate and we'll see you later. It's been great. What we do is walk them through that next year. So graduation actually can take up to another year. During that time, they're surrounded by a group of mentors, 10 mentors, who mentor them in 10 key areas of life. Those areas of life are very simple, from transportation, finance, housing. Those mentors meet with that graduate once a week for 52 weeks, for 1 year. Now the byproduct is these mentors help her make some very key decisions. So transportation, am I going to rent a car, lease a car, buy a car? Should I just take the bus? They help her make those decisions in her life. That's the byproduct though. The prime product, and this is the reason that we feel the program works so strongly, the prime product is those people become her new social network. They're her new family that are receiving her out into the community, so she doesn't have to go back to the old relationships and the old things. She now has a new person inviting her over for Sunday dinner, a new person who's going to her wedding, a new group of people, and so that's how they transition back out into the community.
No, when you say graduation, what boxes have to be checked? What's your level of confidence when they go back out into the world?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, and for every young woman, that answer is very wide-ranging. So for the vast majority of them, though, it's education-related, it's sociological related. If they had addictions coming in, which many of them do, not all of them, but many of them do they have a good handle on that? If they have any kind of mental behavioral health issues, are they on a stable track with that? And then most importantly, how much healing have they experienced? How much of that root healing have they experienced to be able to live a fulfilled life, a life with purpose? Along with that then, employment is huge for us. We're very fortunate. Grand Canyon University and Brookline College give us full ride scholarships for the women who graduate our program. So that's just a huge benefit to them. But then a number of employers, a number of those same donors that give to our budget, open up their doors for employment for our young women. So those are kind of the big factors. 30% of the young women who come into our program are pregnant, and so we had to build an entirely new wing just for the crisis pregnancy piece. Then part of their success is do I know how to take care of this child? Do I know my options for this child?
And so history doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing, using private sector funds to certainly help your city. I think we're going to hear now from one of the victims that you described, and she's going to talk a little bit about her story and her accommodations here and her hopes and dreams.
As parents, there are some things we don't even want to imagine.
Like human trafficking of girls and boys as young as age 12.
An estimated 100,000 in the U.S. each year being sold for sex.
It's difficult to talk about, but it's time we all take action.
Because these are precious children, our children.
When it comes to human trafficking of children, we want the world to know.
We're not buying it.
Arizona's not buying it.
For more information on how you can make a difference, visit aznotbuyingit.org.
So, Vice Mayor, we're here now in one of the rooms. These are the residential rooms. We call them dream rooms. They're rooms that we've put together specifically for the young women of our program. And here with me today is Hannah. And Hannah's it's truly a success story in this program. She came in working very hard. It's a hard role to come out of and to start to rebuild. And what were some of the hard points for you? And what are you comfortable sharing with about your journey here?
Okay, well, my name is Hannah, and I came to the Dream Center about 2 years ago for the rescue project. I was put in human trafficking, and I had ended up leaving that program because I just wasn't ready yet. And then when I had went back out, even, of course, worse things happen, and I had remembered that there was a crisis pregnancy program, and they had mixed our programs together, and it had just seemed extremely perfect for me because I had been in both situations. So I had called Diana Montgomery and Steele to see if I could come back, and they okayed me to come back to the program, and I've been here 7 months now, and coming here, I have learned a lot of my self-worth. I've learned a lot of what people expect of you as a woman and just as a Christian in general.
So during your time here, there have been classes you've gone to and counseling and different things. What has that experience been like for you?
Coming here and doing classes and stuff like that means that you have to get raw in depth with what the problem is, and you can leave and go to a whole bunch of places and stuff like that, but if you're not dealing with the root of the issue, then the problem's not going to go away. And so these teachers are willing to volunteer their time and just completely sit there and open up their past history and experience and hope with us and stuff like that to let us know that we can make it. And I have the best counselor ever, and she's kind of like turned into my family, you know what I mean? And that's what this is. This is my Dream Center family. And it's when you have to come here, you have to learn how to fast from things, fast from the world, fast from secular music, fast from your phone. And that gives you a lot of be still time. That gives you a lot of time to be by yourself and learn who you are and who you want to be. And so that's what I've done.
So that's one of our most important questions here is, who do you want to be? What is your dream for your life?
Well, okay.
What are you going to do next?
Well, I would like to go to GCU. I'd like to take the scholarship to GCU, and I'd like to get some sort of degree in children. I love children. And then I'm going to be a mom, too. So I want to be a successful mom, and I just want to graduate this program. And
Talk about that. You excited?
Yeah, I have my baby in 3 weeks. He's a boy, and his name is Silas. And I plan on staying here until I graduate. And I obviously want to leave the Dream Center and have my life out in the world and stuff like that, but I also want to get back here. I can't imagine just completely leaving here and never coming back, you know what I mean? So that's it.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Cool, too. Hannah, would you give us a tour of your room and show us all the different parts, and what did the room itself mean to you coming here to the Dream Center?
Okay. This was my first director's room, and so when they gave me this room, I was like, wow, this really is my room, you know what I mean, because I kind of originated in this room. This was where my program was laid out for me. This is where I did a lot of my counseling at first 2 years ago and stuff. And then we're actually the first ones. I'm the first one to live in this room. This room is about 6 months old, and it's a mommy room, and the people who put their time and effort into this room really thought about what would make it easier as a mom. We have bathtubs, we have rounder like furniture and things like that, and it just makes more sense, less knickknacks and stuff, you know. And it's people put their time and their effort into these rooms not knowing if you're going to be successful or not, you know what I mean? They're willing to just do it out of faith, you know what I mean? Take that leap of faith and stuff, and it shows us our self-worth and what we can work for later on and everything like that. So it's really appreciated for the people who donated these rooms.
Well, Pastor, thanks so much for having us. We really appreciated this. I hope it was very informative for our audience. You're doing tremendous work here. Again, almost all done by the private sector and donations, and we just think that's fantastic. So we really can't thank you enough for having us out, and we're looking forward to working with you more on our subcommittee. And that's it for On the Issues. So if you have any questions or comments, please call my office at 602-262-7445, or our website is phoenix.gov/district2. And we'll see you next month on the Issues.